Good afternoon. We'd like to welcome you to the 2020 celebration of All Things Book Awards. My name's Chris Lockwood. I chair the UKLA Book Awards.
And my name's Linda Graham. I was a founder member of the UKLA Book Awards.
We've got two different kinds of awards that we're going to be announcing this afternoon. The first is the Digital Book Award, and we'll tell you a bit about that in a moment. And the second one is shadowing of the Book Awards, and Linda's going to tell you about that.
Well, we started shadowing some time ago now, in 2012, when our conference was at the University of Leicester. And we decided to invite HE tutors from across the country to shadow the awards with small groups of students. And this became enormously popular. Over 60 universities have taken part so far. And we were very lucky. The last 3 years, the NEU, National Education Union, has sponsored us, and we've been able to award sponsored places to our international conferences for 4 or 5 students each year. And then it came to this year. And of course, there was the pandemic. Some universities managed to work with their teachers, with their student teachers. Here's Deborah Myhill at the University of Exeter. And she says, despite the lockdown, PGCE students at the University of Exeter had a wonderful time shadowing the Book Awards for the 11 to 14 age group, with students distributed across the whole of the Southwest and more than 150 miles between some of them. We created a discussion forum where we shared lively exchanges about the books and our responses to them. An Excel spreadsheet acted as a distribution centre. Books were travelling around the Southwest by post throughout the shadowing period, though it would have been far easier if we could have borrowed Hedwig, Harry Potter's owl. It is such a great opportunity to read and enjoy the best that is being written for this age group. However, not very many universities manage to do it. So, over to you, Chris.
We opened the shadowing process to any teacher, and over 200 teachers enrolled in the process. It was very exciting. People who hadn't been involved in the Book Awards before and took part in the shadowing. And rather than collecting up those votes at the end of the summer term, when schools were in lockdown, we extended it until the end of October to give those teachers who'd enjoyed reading the books on their own a chance to share them with their teachers in school and their children in their classes.
We were particularly excited to hear of whole schools who decided to buy packs of the books for all of their staff. I mean, Sam Crichton's school was one of them. And he says, this term, I've lost count of the number of times I've found teachers talking about books from the different categories, or being able to confidently recommend them to children and even use them to teach from. Our international conference bookseller, Marilyn Brocklehurst, very kindly offered to send packs of books to schools at reduced prices. And she sold over 210 whole sets of books to schools across the country. So we know that these wonderful shortlisted books were being read by teachers and enjoyed. We particularly know about it because those teachers who were also UKLA members could join WhatsApp groups. Do you want to say a bit about that, Chris?
Yes, we had a WhatsApp group for each category of the Book Awards, led by different UKLA Book Award team members, and we communicated with those people in a range of ways. We had the 3 to 6 group, and we had a Padlet where people could put their responses, but people had long discussions on WhatsApp about how much they'd enjoyed the books and what they'd done with them. So it's been a very interactive process this year. We managed to collect up all the votes, ones that came in from the students in the summer by email and also by SurveyMonkey in October, and we put all of those together.
And we're delighted to see, if we look back at this, all the people who've shadowed the awards over the years, we now have a couple of those students who are now regional reps. 2 or 3 of the students have become teacher judges, and 2 or 3 run reading for pleasure groups. So it's a lovely innovation.
Yes. Just to show you how enjoyable it is, we've got a little film to show you. This comes from Hamwell Fields Primary School, where the whole school took part in the Book Awards. All of the categories, and they chose which category they wanted to take part in. So I do hope you enjoy the film.
We really enjoyed taking part in the UKLA Book Awards here at Hamwell Fields. We were lucky that so many of our staff were interested in reading books, and lots of them had signed up for a real variety of the different sections. So, for example, I chose picture books because that's something I don't know so much about, whereas there were other staff members who were doing the younger age groups and some doing the 7 to 11. What the best aspect it brought to our school, I think, was the discussion amongst staff about the books. We also had a book club set up in the hall to share the books, and it felt such a lovely experience for the whole school. Even people that weren't involved in our shadowing group still looked during their lunch times, their break times, at the books, and then took them back to their class and shared with the children.
I found UKLA Book Club really useful because I was able to introduce some new books to my Year 6 students. We looked at the front covers and the blurbs together and decided upon which book we wanted to read first. It created great discussion because I hadn't read the book myself yet. I was able to discuss with the class and make predictions about what we thought was going to happen next. It also meant that they could recommend the books that they enjoyed for the new Year 6s coming up this year. And we've actually chosen one of the books that they enjoyed the most last year to continue reading this year. It also enabled me to read some books that I wouldn't usually pick up myself, particularly that the boys might enjoy, so books to do with robots that maybe I might avoid, and technology, but I read those and really enjoyed them, so it's inspired me to choose more of a variation of books that I might not normally try.
So having the books delivered to my house meant that I was able to explore the text alongside my really young daughter and then see how those would then transfer into the classroom. I really loved that each of the books brought up a really challenging topic at a real kind of child appropriate level, and I really enjoyed exploring those. And also it inspired us as an early years team to have a look at our bookshelves and to change some of the text that we're using in the classroom throughout the topic.
It was lovely to experience the range of non-fiction books that were available within the group. Some of the Year 6 children saying about Charles of St Kilda that they heard my voice during their writing assessments while they were reading the book, or listening to the book I should say, so it was fascinating.
I like being able to see books from other people's point of view when we shared our opinions all together.
It was just great fun and so interesting reading new quality material for children's books. I've got a degree in literature and I've never really been able to use it properly up until now, and I really appreciated discussing all the information and the lovely new subjects. I found it really rewarding to talk to other people about these different types of books.
It was great joining the UKLA Book Awards this year. It was a fantastic opportunity to see quality texts that we could use in the classroom and on our spine to update our teacher knowledge of texts that were around, and we cannot wait until next year's award comes around.
And so to the Digital Book Award. The chair of this award is Natalia Kusakova, who is Professor of Early Childhood Education at the University of Stavanger in Norway, and also Professor of Reading and Children's Development at the OU in the UK. Here's Natalia.
Welcome to the Children's Digital Book Awards 2020. The Children's Digital Book Award is the only award in the area of children's technologies and literacy that is judged entirely by teachers. The award is run in partnership between UKLA and the Open University, and it celebrates the extent to which literacy apps, e-books, and interactive digital books support children's reading for pleasure. This year, the joint winners are the Reading Realm by Reading Realm and the Reading Journey by Just Imagine. Although the teachers couldn't use the apps in their classrooms this year, they very much valued the extent to which the apps involve young children in reading, support their joy and creativity, and really celebrate the magic of stories. So, congratulations to the winners.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for this lovely award. It's absolutely fantastic to have received this. Thank you to all the teachers who tested the app, and a massive congratulations to the Reading Journey app as well. Thanks a lot, it means an awful lot to us at the Reading Realm that the app is being recognised in this way. Thank you. Bye.
Hello, I'm Caroline Bradley, the Reading for Pleasure and Libraries lead from Just Imagine. I just wanted to say how delighted we are to receive the UKLA Digital Literacy Award for our reading resource, The Reading Journey. It's wonderful to have this resource recognised as an innovative and creative digital resource. The Reading Journey is all about creating time and space for purposeful independent reading. It was devised as a result of an identified need from various initiatives, including a London Schools Excellence funded reading project. The Reading Journey aims to fulfil the essential need for high quality reading material for children to select from in the classroom. The app is a key element of this and is intended to be used alongside rich teacher to pupil and pupil to pupil book talk, and of course, inviting reading environments. It's been designed with just enough gameplay to be inviting without detracting from the core goal, which is to invite children into the many worlds that books can open up for them. We all know that every child has the right to choose when it comes to selecting their books for independent reading. But true choice comes from having a diverse selection of quality titles on offer, including those that appeal to different interests and cater for different reading levels. But it's important to us that our selections are not restrictive. Children can also make use of the device's camera to add images to their preferred reading material on their bookshelves. They can include Match Magazine, the latest Tom Gates, or the complete works of Shakespeare if they want to. It really is a personal reading journey. A website goes alongside the app and enables teachers to observe the reading preferences of the children in their class and to interact with them on an individual level. They can set meaningful challenges to extend the children's reading experience. This resource is the result of hundreds of hours of work, and we are particularly grateful for the design input and software engineering from Alec Gamble. His technical skills in gaming technology resulted in eye-catching graphics that really appeal to our target market. Along with Alex Blank created the teacher's website infrastructure and ensured that our vision for this resource was workable. Indeed, it still has considerable potential for development, and we're excited to see where it can be taken next. We must also mention our gratitude to all the lovely authors who feature in the Author of the Month segment. They answered countless questions from children to provide an insight into their writing and inspirations, and in turn they've become a source of inspiration for the children using the app to develop their own writing and reading repertoires. We'd also like to acknowledge the many publishers who have provided digital assets which allow the children to read sample chapters before deciding if they'd like to select a particular book from the shelf. So on behalf of everyone at Just Imagine, I would like to offer our grateful thanks to UKLA for initiating and administrating this important award and recognising the impact digital resources can have on developing effective reading cultures within schools in the 21st century. Thank you.
And now to find out the winners of the Shadowing Book Awards for each category.
Hi, I'm Ben Harris. I'm a Year 6 teacher and English lead, and it gives me great pleasure today to announce the winner of the 2020 UKLA Book Award Information Book category that was selected by the shadowing panel. We had 6 amazing books to choose from, which ranged from The Life of Mary Shelley through to a book on bears to a book of questions that were asked of a Holocaust survivor. But the book that we've chosen and the winner of the award this year is Counting on Catherine, How Catherine Johnson Put Astronauts on the Moon, written by Helene Becker and illustrated by Dao Fumiruk. This is an amazing book where the marriage of words and pictures is just perfect, and it's sure to entice readers back again and again to listen to the story of this incredible woman. It also gives a great place to women in Black history. What attracted me most about the book was the illustration quality and how it linked to the information that was being given. There were so many hidden secrets that going back time and time again, you could discover more. And one example I want to show briefly is just the end papers. And here's the young Catherine drawing on the board lots of grown-up formulas. But how old is she there? About 10, 11? And what's lovely here is the inspiration it gives to young children, where they're seeing grown-up maths, but through the eyes of a child, such as here, the volume of a cone and the volume of a sphere turned into an ice cream cone. And this lovely bit here, where there's 2 infant-style handprints showing the base 10 system, how we learn to count on 10 fingers at the beginning of our lives. So this is an incredible book, and I'm delighted to commend it to you through this award. Thanks very much.
The winner of the 3 to 6 plus category is Mixed by Ari Chung. Mixed is a terrific picture book that tells a tale of diversity and acceptance through the lens of colour theory. My class loved the personalities of the characters, which they found witty and cool, and appreciated the very important message that the story carries. I find that the author's approach to confronting discrimination is rather tactful, and that helped me start a conversation on how we think that prejudice shapes the society we live in and what change we would like to see in our community. Mixed is an inspiring book for every age, and one that I certainly wish every child and grown-up would read and enjoy.
everyone. I just want to say what an honour and privilege it has been to be part of the UKLA shadowing this year for the Book Awards. It's been something that's new to me. I've never done it before, but it has been an absolute pleasure. The discussions that we had around all of the books was vital to my career, to my own personal development when it comes to children's literature, and I have loved every moment. The support's been incredible. The authors, all of them, really gave me something different in each of the books shortlisted this year, which made judging actually really hard. It was one of the most difficult decisions I've actually made when judging, and I think I speak for everybody who was part of the shadowing this year. However, it gives me great pleasure to announce the 2020 UKLA Book Award from the Shadowers. The winner is The 11th Trade by Alyssa Hollingsworth. So well done, congratulations, and thank you so much for a journey that was just beautiful, powerful, and it will actually stick with me forever. So thank you.
Hello everyone, and I'm delighted to announce that the winner of the Shadowing Award in the 11 to 14s category this year is The Skylarks War by Hilary McKay. So The Skylarks War follows Clary and her brother Peter from childhood summers in Cornwall through to the onset of First World War and beyond. We found that books about war are always really popular with our pupils, but I think this one in particular really grabbed people's attention because of the female perspective, which isn't always as easy to find. As a teacher, what I absolutely loved about the book was the way some of my younger readers in particular kind of almost grew up alongside Clary as they read the book. So at the start, initially, she's quite naive about the realities of war, and there's a really poignant scene where she's outside a toy shop and looking at a kind of war display of soldiers lined up against each other. And it's very neat and very kind of clean. And that sort of really reflects what she imagines is going on in France. But obviously as the book progresses, Clary kind of understands much more about kind of loss and pain and the impact of war on families. And I think, you know, our students kind of grew up alongside her in that discovery. I'm absolutely thrilled that the Skylarks War has won in the shadowing category, and now have the pleasure of speaking to its author, Hilary McKay. Great, so good morning, Hilary. Lovely to see you.
Great, it's nice to see you as well.
And just a huge thank you for talking this morning about the book, and congratulations again on being chosen as the Shadowers winner for the 11th.
I know, that was such a lovely surprise. Thank you very much indeed.
Wow, very well deserved. I reread it in the last couple of weeks and absolutely, you know, had all the same delight, I think, in reading it as the first time. So I think students have absolutely loved it. Yeah, just to talk about the book a little bit then. So one of the first things that kind of jumped to mind when I knew I was going to get to talk to you was that the novel spans, you know, quite a long time period.
More than 20 years, I know.
Indeed, and I just wondered if Clary was a particular age when she first came to mind, and therefore did you have to kind of create the backstory, the front story, or what age was she maybe when you first sort of conceived of the book?
Yeah, I saw you going to ask that. She came to mind in this book.
Ah.
And she was a subplot, and she starts off age 10 in it. And she just runs through the book because I wanted to set a scene 100 years earlier from the time I was writing. So she started off age 10, but it was I think the subplot characters took over the main characters to some extent. I got very fond of them, and I wrote her a book of her own, which went back to her birth, really, and then forward till she was grown up and through education. So really, it was a whole story. It was too long a time. Having said that, I've done just the same in the sequel, and I was sure I wouldn't do, and I have done. I've covered about 15 years in the sequel, so I'm coming down. You know, the next one will be more reasonable.
Oh, that's exciting. Any idea when the sequel might come out? I'm sure people will want to know.
Yes, I think it's late May, and I was hoping we'd be all out of lockdown, but maybe not. I don't know.
Excellent, one to look forward to. And I was reading on the website, and you were showing us just before this that there were some kind of artifacts or some items that you had that kind of inspired the writing. And I was wondering if you'd share those with us.
I did bring them along, yes, to my desk. I take them into schools and things like that because it makes it look a bit more real. There was a key mentioned in the book, the key to the cricket pavilion.
Oh, wow.
Leather bootlace. Can you see that? There it is.
Absolutely, yeah. That's quite a key.
Yes, I have coins from the period. And in the story, I don't know if you remember, but the little girl gets given a sovereign for her birthday. That's the sovereign she gets for her birthday. It's got the right date on it and everything, if you look. So.
Yeah, and I hadn't realised that they were actual gold as well, you know, reading the notes of it.
They're really
amazing.
Amazing, yes. They were worth their weight in gold. That's, you know, comes from. What else did I have? I have this book. This is a book for children brought home from school. Right at the beginning of Skylarks War, Peter comes home with a lovely book, which he shares with his sister. It's the beginning of her getting educated, really. He makes an effort. So I used that book and quotes from the book. It was very funny when the American proofs came through. They'd actually found a copy of the book in America and checked my quotes. Yes, very thorough copy editing. And the other thing I used some like sort of portals to take you back. This is the Times from October the 6th, 1915. It's a real.
Oh, wow.
It's a real copy, not a printed copy. And it's fascinating to look through it. I mean, the front page is terribly depressing because it's a list of deaths and killed in action, in memoriam and things like that. When you open it up, you get into adverts for cocoa and underwear and school books. It's a bit of social history, but you can hold right there in your hand. I've got copies printed out, but I can take for children to see. That's a bit fragile. And you can see how people were thinking on that exact day at that time and touch something that would have been touched. And it really does carry you back very quickly. I think the coins work the same way to do that, carry you back very quickly. If you could give a child a handful of coins from 1910 and say, this is what it felt like, it's something a bit real.
It is, absolutely. And that's very much in the book, how she begins to kind of, by finding the newspapers in the library, kind of discover a bit more, I think. And I mean, that was one of the things I think that, as I mentioned in the introduction, some of our younger readers kind of grow up almost alongside Clary in their understanding of war. And I just wondered kind of how you go about deciding, almost like how graphic or how stark to make your portrayals of war, because, you know, I've been thrilled with the book really because I can recommend it to those younger ones, and that is the 11 to 14s category, and I can recommend it to kind of upper primary. So, and yet it doesn't shy away from some of the realities. That description of the trenches is, you know, very vivid. So
no, I have an edited version of that. If I read it to primary school, I take out one or two of the words of that. I think it's borderline. It would have to be a good year 6 class to cope with it, actually. Maybe a little preparation before they just got launched into it, because if you get fond of the characters, I think you can see what's happening to them without me blasting too many people's heads off. You know, you don't have to say much to get through to children. I remember my little boy, when he was 4 or 5, went to school and they had to sing that song, Lord of the Dance.
Oh, yeah.
Came home in a dreadful state, you know. It only took one line to absolutely trigger him. And so I was very careful. And I am very careful if anybody says I'm getting this for my 10-year-old, I say, read it first, you know. We'll read one chapter, there's one particular chapter, but I think they should read first. Yeah. I think I wrote it more with a slightly higher age group in mind than that.
Yeah, I think, yeah, upper primary, a few definitely, and my daughter read it, and yeah, that's been really good. And you mentioned kind of class teaching then, and I wondered, obviously it's a teachers award that we've been doing, and we've been thinking very much on, as we've been judging and looking at the books, you know, how we could use them in school as well. And I wondered, as an author, do you consider that when you're writing? Is it always the individual writer, or do you think, oh, might this book be used in school as a kind of class reader?
Yeah, I think I do on the whole. I have a lot of interaction with teachers as well, and librarians as well. Yes, I do. I do think about the audience, and I do think what will work with boys as well as girls, for instance, you know. And I keep the language to, I think although the content is quite grown up, the language is quite simple. That's what I've tried to use anyway, language that isn't going to cause you to stumble over it if you read it aloud. Yeah, so I do think of that. I think everybody does, really.
That's really interesting, thank you. And you mentioned there about kind of content for boys. I know, you know, when I started recommending it, maybe the first impression might be, oh, it's for girls. But then actually, as they got reading it absolutely loved it. And I wondered what you thought, you know, what were the main messages you'd like boy readers to get from the book?
Really, I don't put messages in my books. I really, as a child and my own children, could spot a message coming at them a million miles away, you know. I didn't put any messages in my books for anybody. I just wrote a story. I don't want to turn people off with preaching, and I don't have any good advice, but no, it was just meant to be an inclusive book, if it could be. It does start with the birth of a little girl, which is going to put most little boys off, I suppose, but my own son hasn't read it, so I don't really expect miracles of other people's. I think it depends on the individual child more than boy or girl, actually.
Okay, thank you. And just tracking back, you mentioned kind of school texts and books at the start of the interview, and I think schools and education are quite prominent in the book. And I wondered whether there were particular kind of memories of your own education that fed into the book or not, or yeah, particularly about kind of books maybe that you studied at school, because I think looking into it as a teacher, we always think about absolutely about books that our pupils enjoy, but there's always that pressure to also kind of study text. So yeah, I just wondered your thoughts on that.
Well, I'm not that old, but I did go to a girls' grammar school where you had to pass an exam to get into it, and it was rather old-fashioned because I was in Boston in Lincolnshire, which was a very old-fashioned market town. And it was a little bit like Clary's School, I suppose, in that there was very strict discipline and very strict uniform, and you were expected to get on with your homework. And I detested it, actually. It was much too strict for me. And it put me off books completely. I went and did science at university where you got books that I adore now, like Tess of the D'Urbervilles.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely taken apart until it was ruined. So I shouldn't like anybody to do that with anything I've written. The only thing I remember being well taught, and it was very well taught, was Shakespeare, and they made us all like Shakespeare, and that made us comfortable with it. And we used to go to Stratford quite often on a coach. That was nice. But usually they were quite good at destroying texts, I found. Middlemarch was another one we took apart, Of Mice and Men.
We're still teaching that.
I know, because people have got so much stock. My poor sister has been teaching it for nearly 20 years. She can recite. She says, I've done a bad thing. You know, here's Lenny again. Yeah, you have to be careful what you do in schools with books and children.
No, we're lucky that, you know, our schools and the ones that I'm in, definitely we have kind of dedicated time on our curriculum that's just reading for a whole hour a fortnight, and we can kind of recommend books and talk to individuals, and obviously with masks and gel and stuff at the moment, but you know, that's one of the highlights of my week, being able to kind of really fit, almost like a personal shopper, kind of what will suit each particular child. So, you know, that's aside from English lessons, which is brilliant. So
the best thing at my school, at my primary schools, was being read aloud to. We all had 15 minutes at the end of the day, and we got through so many books, and it was absolutely wonderful. And I think it's really good if you can still do that now, because we didn't get read aloud to at home. Our parents were far too busy to read to us, but we always finished a day like that, and we went through acres of books, and it really started us off. It was, I think it was the best thing that happened at school, was story time at the end of the day. And everything was put away, and you could doodle if you wanted to. I remember that. And we went through so many books. And I think schools are still doing that and bringing it back. I think Cressida has been trying to bring that back into schools very much.
Yeah, absolutely. In that sense, sometimes when, you know, I've certainly read aloud to classes and know people when they still sit there and the bell's still gone and it's break time and you know, time to go, they're like, just no, we want some more. So yeah, that feeling, you know, as a teacher, absolutely, when you can see every face kind of wrapped on it. No, it's a very powerful thing. Just tracking back a little bit as well in terms of kind of what came into the book or inspired you. I mean, I found that a lot of the bits about Plymouth and Cornwall resonated with me because my own grandparents lived in Plymouth and Cornwall. And I've got really strong memories of kind of wartime stories, would have been World War II, but that kind of those stories about what it was like in those places, very much being part of growing up. And I just wondered about any conversations that you'd had with other people, whether family or others, that kind of fed into the book.
Yes, my grandfather was 4 years through World War One. He was 2 years a prisoner and 2 years fighting. And he never said a word about it afterwards. Not one word could be got from him until the week he was dying, when he said, "Don't give me a gravestone, I left too many friends in unmarked graves." That was the only words he ever spoke about it. I think it traumatized him his whole life. And when his two sons, which was my father and my uncle, went off into the Army and Navy for the Second World War, that was such a disappointment to him. They thought they'd fought the war to end all wars. So that story was in the family, but there was never any detail. That's all we knew about it. We knew what he'd said as he was dying. And it sort of, I have his medals in a little wooden box. But we didn't know any more about it, and he wasn't going to talk about it. He lived a happy life. He married and had children and was involved in education and all sorts of things, but he never ever spoke about those 4 years. And but obviously they'd been on his mind all the time, and that's all I know about. No, I don't have any more First World War stories. He died when I was very little, and but I did make Clary. I gave her my grandmother's birthday just so I could keep track of her, and she was born the year my grandmother was born. So I knew what was happening to her. I do that when I'm writing books. I think, I know whose birthday I'll give you.
That's a good tip, actually.
Keep you the right age. So Rose Casson is exactly 3 months older than my daughter in the Casson family books, because then I know what year she's in without having to track down those.
Really cool. And I mean, we've touched on this a little bit with the question about kind of gender and things, but I wondered, so one of the things I think that's really powerful for all young people when they're reading is that sense of, or even as adults, when you catch something of yourself in a character, even, it doesn't have to necessarily be you, but, that sudden moment of connection where you realize an element of your identity is reflected in someone is just, so formative, isn't it? And
yes, it
is so validating. And but it's interesting because the book is set, a good 100 years ahead of, any of my young readers or my students kind of reading it. And I wondered what they might still see I mean, I've got a few thoughts, but, I was wondering from you what they might see in themselves despite that centuries time gap.
Well, It is a century's time gap, but you know, the history of that century is still all around us. They've only got to look out and see Victorian buildings and things like that. And I'm sure the girls still worry about what they're going to wear to school, like they did. I'm sure there's still sibling jealousy, as there was between the two brother and sister, Clary and Peter, when they were very little. You know, Peter really resented his sister. I'm sure there's still that. I'm sure there's still the joy of getting away in summer to the seaside. I think there's perhaps a lot to recognise. I hope there is anyway. I put in lots of little hooks. You know, it was a Christmas party. Christmas parties have changed, but it was still Christmas and people minded about it. I hope there's a lot of things to pick up. Do your students pick things up, do they say?
Yeah, and I think there was one line which, when I read it again, it just really kind of, you know, a line kind of gets you in the gut sometimes a little bit, and it was about Simon, and it's where he's talking to Peter, and it says his elusive, aching world. And that just, you know, you see different things on a second reading, don't you? And that just really, I think that really struck a chord with me, that
Simon was gay and just beginning to recognise it in that book. By the end, he had recognised it. It's still a hard thing for children to deal with growing up. I still know children who have struggled with that. Even now, even as open as we are, so heaven knows what it was like 100 years ago. It must have been a torment, I think. There was nobody. I think Simon was fortunate in that he had a loving family that could understand where he was coming from, and he also had a friend who understood. But I think that's not a gift that everybody has. And yes, I was very sorry that Simon died. And I didn't want him to die, partly because he was gay and I didn't want to do that. But in this book, unfortunately, we follow the characters all the way through to the end of the war, and we find out that Rupert survives. And I couldn't write a book where one of them didn't die, because that wasn't the authentic experience of people. The other thing that happened with my grandfather that I was talking about earlier was he signed up to go to war for a big camping adventure. It started off with all the other boys on his street. It wasn't a street, actually, it was a close, it was a circle, I remember. And he was the one that came back, and none of the others did.
Gosh.
So people did die.
Sobering.
It's sobering when you think what it was like, and he always must have felt, where are my friends, and what do their mums and dads think, because I'm here and they're not. He went off with a group, I think there were 6 or 8 of them, that sort of number, and they thought it was going to be, they started off with camping, and they thought it would be great fun. And it wasn't great fun. So I had to make somebody die in the book. So I had to make the other male character die. It was the only one I had. So there we are. Pity for Simon, though. Would like to have given him a happy ending.
Yeah.
I think in a way he was happy because he was understood, which counts a lot then and counts a lot now, actually. So yeah.
Yes, I think our readers, you know, I think the young people will, absolutely recognise that. That does span any generation, doesn't it? That feeling of somebody, you know, being supported and cared for and loved and understood. Lovely, thank you so much. And just feels like a bit of a woman's hour question, this one, but you know, just outside of the book, I just wondered what the impact of lockdown has been on you as a writer.
Oh, as a writer, I was lucky. I was halfway through a book. I got a lot of the research done. I was halfway through the sequel to the Skylarks War. It was been a book in between, but I was going to write the sequel, and I have been doing. So I could carry on with that. And while I was writing it, when I looked up, I would think, oh God, it was a pandemic, and my kids one was working in a hospital, you know. I've just got a sign up saying my internet connection is unstable. But anyway, I'll try and carry on. And then I would go back into the book, and it was like stepping between worlds. It was very odd and quite nice. It was horrible when I finished the book, and I had to think, we're still in this hideous, monstrous pandemic. And it was hard also to get the research done. And then I found that the British Library, where I do most of my research, although it had shut its doors, there were librarians behind the doors, and they sent me the most remarkable stuff from a library. But I would have gone and got hold of street maps of Berlin, old Berlin, that sort of thing. I had a ruby in the book, and I needed to find the historic price of rubies in 1938, and I got 5 papers on it. It was really wonderful, so that was useful.
That's amazing.
Yes, it is amazing. It's amazing what they'll do. Yes. I went there just before lockdown, and I said, I'm writing about a newsagent shop in Plymouth where part of a story was set, and what will be on the shelves the week after Kristallnacht, which was November 1948. Yeah. And we got all the major papers out, and then they said, Plymouth, and got out the Devon and Exeter Gazette, you know, and I've got all copies of them here for the next book. Maybe I'll get into schools with them, I don't know. But anyway, that sort of thing. The research is great fun. It's the best part of writing the book.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm absolutely, this is the first I've heard of the sequel, so that's a very exciting discovery of today, and it's been absolute pleasure to talk to you, Hilary. Thank you. Congratulations again on the win. Very well deserved, and yeah, absolutely look forward to finding out more about the sequel. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me and being here this morning, and for nominating me. That was really lovely to get that prize.
Brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us to celebrate the UKLA Book Awards. I'm sorry that we couldn't meet in person. Thank you to the members of the Book Awards team, Linda, Joy, Prue and Danny, who have worked so hard to make this happen. And thank you to the students and teachers who have put so much time, energy and creativity into reading, sharing and enjoying the books and apps we've seen this afternoon. We can't wait to do it again, so look out for the tweets next summer when we'll be looking for shadowers for the UKLA Book Awards 2021.